Welcome back, everyone, to episode number 60 of the Beginner to Master Speedrun. So just one thing before we get into the chess is I messed up the win streak from a few episodes ago. I actually forgot to carry over 3 wins. I believe it was from episode 56 to 57. So a few of you did let me know in the comments, and I do really appreciate that. So I'm coming into today with 177 wins thus far. And yeah, we'll try and keep it going. Last episode, I did break 2,000, so my opponents are definitely getting tougher. I'll have to try and stay focused, hopefully play some good moves today. So let's hop into the first game. Okay, first opponent playing Mindjoy, and we have a queen's pawn. I definitely want to manage my time more effectively today compared to previous episodes. I'll try and use the clock as a weapon. And opponent goes for bishop g5. I'm going to play a semi-Slav setup. Maybe we'll get a Cambridge Springs. If e3, I'll play queen a5. Queen c2, I think I can still play queen a5. e3 is a more common move, but let's see if we can transpose here. And queen a5 is generally justified when the bishop comes to g5 and there's tension between the pawns. But my opponent maybe takes advantage of the fact that they didn't commit to e3, and the bishop is now breaking the pin. I don't think I want to play bishop b4, which walks into a3. Although, do I? Bishop b4, a3, there's a pin, but then rook c1 would come. And honestly, I might just move back to d8. And we'll see if white wants to repeat. If white plays this, then let me find a different move here. Or do I play queen a5 again? No, queen a5, bishop d2, and then if I move back, white could claim a draw with bishop g5. Can I take on c4? Might be playable. If I take on c4, white can play e4, I play b5, white plays e5. It goes into some super sharp line. I don't think I lose material. Okay, let's be adventurous. Taking on c4, going for b5. And I think we're transposing into maybe a similar line to, I think, what's called the Botvinnik semi-Slav. White plays a3, which is a good sign, so I think maybe they were scared of this move or this move. I'll go ahead and play h6 here, see what white does with the bishop. And now I think I just want to play bishop e7 and break the pin. If white were quicker to play e5, I would have counterattacked the bishop, which I can show after the game. We see rook d1. Now bishop e7 I think makes sense. And the goal going forward is still to complete development, probably to castle soon, and eventually play a6 and c5. And c5 is really the main break I want to achieve. But I'll start with castling. And white does have the center pawns. This is a typical situation that you see in these, especially in Queen's Gambit accepted lines, where black holds onto the pawn, but white has a center. Yeah, I'll go ahead and play a6 here. So a6 basically over-defends the b5 pawn, so I can more easily play c5. I probably want to move the queen to b6. Maybe even start with rook e8. Yeah, I'm going to start with rook e8, just making sure the bishop is better defended. And I think the ideal setup is queen b6, rook a d8, and eventually go for the pawn break. Okay, queen b6. It's actually nice that I kicked the bishop to h4, because now there's no bishop e3. Bishop is kind of stuck on the king side. My opponent's been playing pretty quickly from this opening, but they're finally beginning to take some time. White basically just brought all the pieces to natural-looking squares. And we're entering the middle game where I think both of us will have to figure out what our plans will be. I'm not sure what to expect from white. And if e5, I can plant the knight on d5 and then offer the trade of bishops. We might see bishop f1, a solid move to unleash the rook on the e-file. Okay, bishop g3, also a solid move. Now I have a choice. And c5 might allow d5, and white gains space. So I might want to start with rook a d8. Another idea I haven't mentioned yet, but very typical with this setup, is maneuvering this knight to f8 and then to g6, where I think it'll be a bit more useful, help defend the king side, unleash the rook on the d-file. Okay, white finally pushes a pawn. So yeah, let's go and enter d5. And this does really change the position, because I have the d5 square now, but white does have more space in the center. Always have to watch out for knight d6 ideas. I mean, c5 is still definitely a consideration. And I'm not too afraid of knight d6, because I just take and then the d-pawn should be weak. So let's go for this. And it's really nice getting this move in to unleash the bishop. Very often, when you play the semi-Slav as black, this is usually a problem piece. But yeah, hopefully going forward, this bishop will turn into one of my best pieces. White does get a pawn to d6. And it's not easy to win with the bishop on g3. But I imagine I can play around it. I'm thinking just knight 7 to f6 here. Simply improve the knight and unleash the rook. Don't see too many other attractive moves. I'm just calculating knight f6 takes, and then b3. But then I have c3. Should be okay. Yeah, I'm going to go for this. And there is an idea to potentially play knight h5, and after bishop h2, knight f4. And try and trade a knight for bishop. We see bishop e5. So white's definitely exerting some pressure. If I take on d4, I mean, d4 is very well defended. So what to do? Actually thinking queen c6 is interesting. If I take, the knight would probably take. I'm actually considering sacking the exchange at some point. Oh, what are the other options? Take, knight takes. Maybe I just move back and then look to play e5. Okay, I'm going to go for this. Bishop takes is also interesting, because then if I take on d6, white could take on f6, damage my structure. But knight takes is played, so yeah, trying to kick the bishop away. And maybe the knight can find a new home on c5, have access to some squares in white's territory. And assuming white moves back, let's say bishop g3 or bishop h2, I should at least consider e5, attacking the knight, obstructing the bishop. But it gets weird, because e5, knight f5. And then the knight defends a pawn. I have knight f4 there. Yeah, really tricky. I could also play knight f8. Safe looking move. Keep the king side covered. Imagine bishop f3 is coming soon. Okay, I'm going to play knight c5. I think this is a bit more active than knight f8. And If white wants to play bishop f3, then I have the d3 square for the knight. And I should still keep in mind this idea of playing e5. Like going forward, I think both of us have to basically consider this move on every turn. There is the idea of playing e5 and then e4, really cementing my control over d3. White returns to e5, so okay, now pawn's blockaded. Wow. And if I mean, I could go back and we could repeat again. Let's repeat once. I don't think I'm repeating twice. Yeah, white's content with a draw. f6. f6 is too weakening. If I take on... I mean, taking on d6 is an option. Maybe I can play this move. But then a4... I'm not sure what to do here. Maybe rook d7? I don't think this move hurts me. Potentially prepares a double up. There might be some cases where I do play f6 and the rook is useful in defending the king side. I'm just trying to put the ball back in white's court. It's not clear what white is going to do here. Yeah, the bishop is still kind of tied down to covering the square. We might see this move bishop f1. And the queen would probably like to be on g3 here, but not easy to navigate there. The knights do a really good job at controlling so many squares in white's territory. Yeah, very tense position. A lot of tension in the center. I just have a weird idea. Playing bishop a8 and knight b7. Like two retreating moves. But that would attack the pawn. I can't play knight e4, so knight b7 would be probably the most realistic way to attack the pawn with a knight. White plays queen c1. I'm controlling all these squares, so just play bishop a8 quickly. I don't really see white's idea with this move. And white's also draining time. So this is very quickly turning into a blitz game. Another idea is to play queen b7, create the battery, but then bishop f3 is a bit more annoying. So, I mean, do I go for this? Maybe I start with this. Optimize a rook. Because it's clear that white doesn't know what to do here, like just moving the queen back and forth. Yeah, this feels like a tennis game. We're just like putting the ball back in each other's court. Rook f1. Now knight b7. I allow queen e4, but then I take... Yeah, that should be fine. I was calculating queen e4 takes queen g4. There would be a mate threat, but then I have this move, at the very least. I do apologize if there's like random background noises. Again, I'm recording from Norway, streaming next to my window, which is next to a busy street. But hopefully it's not too bad. And yeah, white goes for this line, so knight e8 looks quite solid. Attacking, or defending the pawn which was attacked. I didn't want to play knight f5, because then knight takes f5 would lead to big problems for black. I'm actually up 2 pawns now. So I won the pawn in the opening, I won the second pawn. It took a lot of work to win the second pawn. But life is looking pretty good here. Up on time. Not getting mated. And going forward, I probably want to move this knight. Even though it's well placed on d5, it blocks the rooks and my bishop in the corner. So, like, moving back unleashes the rooks, unleashes a bishop, a sniper bishop aimed at white's king. And also, I'm probably going to maneuver the knight to g6 just to fully defend my king side, get rid of this bishop. So yeah, momentum is definitely in black's favor here. Yeah, my opponent's draining a lot of time. I honestly don't see like what white can do here. Like there's bishop f3, but I'm happy to trade with the material advantage. h4, okay. Some logic to that. If I play this, bishop might move and white will go for this. But actually, if the bishop moves, I win the knight. So I think white's actually just falling apart here. Bishop's not defended. It's tied down to defending the knight. Yeah, I think it's just kind of been a downward spiral for white the last few moves. I have a feeling I'm going to win this game on time. But we'll see. Knight f3, so... That actually... Does that save everything? I can take on f3. Yeah, it doesn't save everything, because now bishop's hit, the queen's hit. I'll take on e5. And we'll trade down. Offering the queen trade. Okay, winning the game on time. I think overall that was a pretty instructive game. Can kind of go to show like what it takes to win at this level. It can take a lot of patience and just the ability to maintain control in the position. We can go back and take a look at this opening. Kind of a funny occurrence in the opening, which I don't think I've encountered this before. Like playing queen a5 and repeating a couple times. Yeah, according to Stockfish, the best move is to take on c4. And eventually, I guess I was provoked into it. This is probably a reason why queen c2 isn't so commonly played before e3. Like going back to this position, most players will just play e3 here, and this would be the start of a mainline Cambridge Springs, which I'm usually happy to play, because there's a lot of potential pressure, potential tactics against white's position. But with queen c2, yeah, and I take the pawn, then it's not easy for white to win back the pawn. And just to show, if white were to play e5, at first it looks like white's winning material because my knight's pinned and attacked, but there's a move h6 and if bishop h4, g5. And there would have been some potential to enter some crazy line, knight takes g5, takes and then takes. I'm not sure what I would play here. Like bishop e7 looks like a standard move, takes and then takes. And this is a big transformation of the position. Material, what is material? Material's equal here, but of course it's very imbalanced and would be an interesting battle going forward. Engine does slightly prefer black, probably because there's like good play on the queen side. Black will castle, d-pawn is potentially weak. But we didn't go into that. And yeah, my opponent just didn't really try to complicate things, just tried to play solid. And then going forward, yeah, I got in this break c5. We traded. And I think everything was under control. Again, we repeated a couple times. Oh, wow. So the engine here says one of the top moves is rook takes d6, which I was like briefly considering. I just didn't want to give white the material advantage. I guess it's not like technically that bad though, because I have a knight and 2 pawns for a rook, and really nice harmony and activity in the center. But yeah, I didn't give the rook, and eventually I found this plan, knight to b7. Yeah, once I won the pawn, everything was good. Okay, nice game. Hopefully some lessons to take away from that one. Up to 2010. Let's keep it going. Okay, playing Wawan Setiawan. Probably butchered that name. Opponents from Indonesia. Going for King's Pawn. And we have a Sicilian. Going for Knight C3. Let's go for a Grand Prix attack. Pawn F4. Sometimes I'll mix it up against E6 on move 2. There's times where I'll play G3 or Knight F3. But yeah, with A6, Black is really just trying to discourage Bishop C4. And Bishop D4 is no longer really a great move for White because B5 and Bishop will get kicked around. So I'll change up my plans here, go for G3, and look to put the Bishop on G2. Very often with the setup, yeah, Black goes for this quick B5 move, and then I'm expecting Bishop to B7. I'll play D3. So I said I was going for a Grand Prix, but this is actually more of a close Sicilian with the bishop on G2. A little bit less aggressive, a little bit more solid. Put the knight on F3. It's still a very easy opening to learn and to play from the white side. It's somewhat of a system-based opening where you can very often stick to the setup and develop the pieces like this. And going forward, and Black maybe still wants to play this D5 break. Considering pawn E5 here, because what is this knight doing? Like if knight D5 I take, pawns get doubled. Yeah, honestly E5 looks pretty good. I'm sometimes reluctant to play such a move without being provoked. But yeah, the knight just has to choose between a lot of not so great looking squares. Like there's cases where the knight will go here and then maneuver to F5. But with H6 included, knight G4, I play H3, just trapping the knight. So yeah, knight G8. Now I'm thinking knight E4. And there's a funny trap here. I don't think Black's going to fall into it, but if knight E7, then it's checkmate on D6. Smothered mate. The D5, okay, all en passant. If Black takes with the bishop, then I'm probably happy to get the bishop pair. Takes. I'm just trying to figure out what my follow-up is. Like if I take and then queen takes, maybe just bishop E3. Also calculating knight E5. Yeah, I think I'll just take and bishop E3. Looks pretty solid. And because Black has now traded off their dark square bishop, I think there's more potential for me to attack on the dark squares. The knight does redevelop. I do have to watch out for this move, knight to G4. I'm actually thinking king H1 here to meet knight G4 with bishop G1. There's also H3. Maybe H3 makes a little more sense. H3. Yeah, I'm going to play H3. So I'm thinking that there's a plan to play queen E1 to F2 or queen D2 to F2. But I just want to create the battery between my bishop and queen to target the C5 pawn. Really just debating where to put the queen. I'll play queen e1. Also ideas of g4 and queen to h4, g3. We see knight d5. So yeah, with this move, I probably have to play bishop f2. Don't want to concede the bishop. It's actually a solid position for both sides. I think I'd slightly prefer white, just given that I have the bishop pair, and there's still this pressure against the queen side. But black is creating pressure of their own. c2 is undefended, now attacked. I think queen e2 just to defend. I probably have to look for a different plan, because c5 is not easy to attack, easy for black to defend. Considering the move knight e5 here, just improve the knight, unleash the bishop. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with this. And this knight is a little bit out of play. Like, if I wanted to, I could have thrown in a3. But I imagine at some point the knight's going to return to c6. Bishop a8. Okay, so defending the bishop, and now the knight is no longer pinned on the diagonal. So now what? I imagine black might want to play this and offer the trade of bishops. So I'm inclined to play a3, provoke this. But then what? There's also c3. Maybe c3 is a bit better to make sure d4 is controlled. I'm going to play c3. This does potentially weaken d3, but I want to drive back the knight and then just put the rook on d1. And maybe eventually go for d4. This game is giving me similar vibes to the previous game, where it's a solid position for both sides, and there's a lot of tension now in the center. But a big part of sometimes succeeding in these positions is being patient and still looking for the improving moves. Actually, I should consider queen takes e5, offer the queen trade. But pawn takes e5, yeah, it makes a lot more sense. Because it's definitely white who has more attacking potential on the king side. Wow. Is black threatening this move? Like, this might be a threat. Like, if I play c4, knight f4. Wow. Yeah, I have to be really, really careful. So maybe this move? Is there knight e3? Take and then take and then take. That's tricky. There's this move too. Maybe this is more solid. Bishop e4. Making sure there's no funny business. But then black plays c4. I have to be careful. Yeah, it's actually really tricky. Bishop e4, c4. I'm actually leaning towards queen g4. I think this is just a safer move. We could end up trading queens. Like here, and then take, and then take. I think c5 falls in the end of that line, though. So I should be threatening c4 here. Okay, queen c7 makes sense. e5's attacked. I guess rook e1. I don't really want to move my rook off the f-file, but I feel slightly provoked. I definitely have to watch my time. Opponent's been doing a better job at managing their time this game. I have h4. Black's position is actually really solid. Also looking at c4. f5 might be coming. I'm gonna play h4. Just a slight improving move. f5 does come. f5 is actually a strong idea. The kingside getting a bit iffy. If I play queen g6, queen g6, knight e7 I take. It's a risky move, but it might make sense. Or if I en passant, there's rook takes and bishop e4. Oh, there's knight takes as well. I don't like my position here. I think I should go for queen e4. Looks kind of, or queen g6. Looks a little bit ugly. If f4, I have this move. Keeping the pawn on e5. It's a shaky position. At some point, I might want to take and play bishop e3. Yeah, Black's done a good job so far, kind of actually finding good harmony with the pieces. My bishop pair doesn't seem so dangerous. At this point, I'd probably want to trade queens and just try and play an endgame. I'm not sure what to expect from Black. Might see this move to prepare this. Oh, but the queen's tied down to c5. So queen c8. Yeah, knight e7 might be coming. If I take... Maybe I take and play... Feels really wrong. There's not much time, though. I think I have to take. I just didn't want knight e7 and things to get traded. Also, f4 was a big threat. So I'm expecting bishop takes. Now I'll play this. So I'm attacking h6. Imagine... And if king h8, I could take and draw, but I don't think I want to take the repetition. This move could be annoying. Bishop could maneuver to g4. Not right away, though, because, okay, I take probably. Could get really sharp, though. If Black plays this, I take, rook f7, I move. A little bit scared about my queen getting stuck. Yeah, king h8. So, b3. Maybe this move. Getting off this diagonal, and if bishop takes a2, I play this move, attacking the bishop and the c5 pawn. Also preparing maybe some lift along the second rank. I have 1 minute and 22 seconds to over 4 minutes. Okay, let's defend. Now if takes, I have rook a1 to probably win back the a-pawn. Bishop f3. The queen is getting stuck. This is not good. That's a very timely move. I don't see what to do here. Play a4. a4 is probably self-destructive. I feel like I need counterplay. Take. I'm trying to go for this. My queen's completely boxed in. Queen d5 is coming. Well, queen d5, maybe rook a7. Still tricky. Time is not good. Trying to defend. King should probably be on h2. Expecting rook a8. I'm basically playing without a queen. At some point I might go for the sack and at least have some life in the position. Is black gonna take a draw? We repeated once, right? Black should definitely play for a win here given the time situation. I think black is much better too. Queen b7, so let's play this. Preventing queen f3. If queen d7, I think I'm going to play king h2. Lose d3, but then get in rook a7. Wow. I take on e6? Probably not. I wanted to take on e6, but couldn't allow the check. And now this rook's going to defend, or the queen defends. Now I think I have to bail out. Can I push for a win somehow? Opponent's taking time. I think I have to take a draw here. Any other option? Check. Okay, I think it's going to be a draw. Okay, my first draw of the speedrun. I lost a rating point. Good game to my opponent. That was definitely a close call. I was certainly worse in this middle game position. I'm also realizing the sun is setting, so the camera's getting darker. Maybe I should switch it to auto. Let me fix the camera in just a moment. Okay. Yeah, hopefully it's not too dark now. So let's go through the game. Sicilian defense. E6 turned into a closed Sicilian. Yeah, I think I mean, I got like a decent position from the opening. And especially with this e5 knight g8, I was feeling really good around here. Knight e4 is fine. Taking. The engine actually prefers keeping the knight here. And I had to move bishop e3. And what's the difference? Queen e7. Wow, the engine really likes this for white. It says knight e5. A little bit hard to consider. I guess there's tactics with the diagonal, like if takes, then takes and takes and takes, and yeah, black actually falls apart really quickly. So I didn't go for that. I took the bishop right away. And wow, so bishop e3, and yeah, white's not better here. According to the engine. Play h3. Yeah, maybe I played a little bit too slowly. And it's still very playable. e5. But then, yeah, once we got to this kind of transformation with my pawn on e5, it still looked good visually for white, but it's really nothing special. Like I didn't really have much attack on the king side. And actually going back here, I should have taken with queen. Still close to equal, but yeah, probably would have been better to try and get an endgame with the bishop pair. Because what happened in the game, it turned out my king was more vulnerable. So a slight misjudgment. And around here, my opponent played really well. Yeah, found this f5 move. I didn't want to take en passant, because after knight takes, the queen is hit and my bishop is hit on g2. And this looked really bad for white, because let's say I move the queen, then takes and takes. And now it's knight versus bishop. I thought that black can maybe establish the knight on g4. Also, queen c6 comes with tempo. So didn't go for that. But then what happened was my queen got kind of stuck on g6. I took on d5. I didn't see anything better because I thought this is a threat and this is also a potential threat. So kind of accepted a worse position. And here I could have bailed out right away, but I was still fighting. And then, yeah, then I don't think I was ever better for the rest of the game. Engine says black is clearly better here. But it wasn't so simple. We almost repeated around here. Now, one trick I had was I was hoping for queen d7. I was going to play king h2. Maybe not the best move objectively, but the point would be if queen takes d3, then rook a7. And this is actually force mate for white. So I'm attacking g7, if rook g8, then there's takes, and white's just crashing through. Takes and checkmates. But yeah, my opponent was a bit more careful, didn't even give me the chance to set up the trick. And yeah, I think I made the right decision when I did, because if I don't play bishop takes h6, my time was just a little bit too low. So, okay, first draw of the speedrun. We're gonna finish this episode, rated 2009. And yeah, I hope you guys can take away some lessons. Opponents are definitely getting more difficult, so stay tuned for the next one, and I'll see you guys soon.